All right, it is time. The time has come. Thursday night. Three fellas who will be talking football. Three fellas talking football. Dave Lochran, Ben Rasa, Andrew Barron, and maybe Carlos Hyde is going to show up tonight. Ben, he's currently alongside his wife in a hospital as she is in labor, giving birth to son, daughter, not sure, what is soon to be a child. And he is supposed to play, but not there at the stadium. And I'm confused.
And it's his birthday. So it's just
Oh.
Narrative Street times two. Yeah, I don't know. Like, is he in pads, like at the hospital, like suiting up with the helmet already? like what's going on? I don't really understand the situation, to be honest.
Dressing in the
bobblehead of a
limo on
kid?
the way to the. This is the strangest thing. So, do you have the reports in front of you? I mean, I can pull them up.
I just so I saw on Twitter, like everyone else, that he's at the hospital. He has a police escort to the stadium whenever the child comes, and he's expected to play. He's active, but I don't know. First of all, I have no idea where the hospital in Cleveland is in relation to the stadium.
Right.
But yeah, don't you? How much time, even as a running back? We were talking before the show. I know he doesn't need to like study the playbook, but it would help if he got it on his cleats and stretched a little. You can't just like not out on the field. That seems suboptimal.
Right. It's not a high school football movie, Andrew.
Yeah, it's not varsity.
Yeah. Are we Andrew, are we concerned by this news?
I don't know. I guess. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a bummer if he does not get to the stadium in time.
Yep.
What do we got? We got breaking news.
So Carlos Hyde has arrived. He's stretching on the field.
Okay.
This is even bizarre. I mean, this is just a tweet I saw. He's there, but they said the baby has not arrived yet. So that was just a lot of waiting for nothing, I guess.
Baby watch continues. Carlos Hyde has arrived. He's stretching, but I'm told, where is it? I just lost it.
So the baby's still hiding?
Yeah.
That's all I got.
The baby is still yet to arrive. And he's on his phone, so I guess he's like watching his never mind. I'm not even going to say what I was going to say because that's
at least he's there. Because I really need him to play. I have him on the Monday, Thursday.
So we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the Thursday game. We're going to talk about the whole Sunday slate. But what happens if like he's handed a phone in the middle of the second quarter and it's his wife and she's like, all right, we're in business? Does he get an escort out of the stadium?
You were so far from my wheelhouse.
Yeah, I'm anti. We
were because it's in our wheelhouse.
Like ways the Browns could lose tonight. This could be a good one. Like somehow Carlos Hyde.
Yep. They're in the huddle. They're in the huddle with like first and goal, 1 minute left, game-winning touchdown. Carlos Hyde gets pulled out of it.
Yep. Yeah. Oh shit, guys! Sorry.
Fumble to lose the game.
Yep.
Oh, this is some of the most bizarre news you'll ever see. Anyway, this is Three Fellas Talking Football. Let's go ahead and break this Thursday night game down. We will assume that Carlos Hyde will be active and play a four quarters, barring injury. Ben, what are you doing? We talk each week when we discuss quickly this showdown, how you kind of have to tell a story with the lineup, and the correlation is heavy here. Is there anything you're seeing that is there anything in terms of this game that you're focusing on specifically from a correlation standpoint?
Well, I mean, it's amazing to see the Browns are favorite, so we'll start there. And just we've seen now the Thursday game is a huge advantage to be at home. That really is a factor. So if you do take it and think that the Browns are going to win, how are they going to win? I would assume that it would be with this defense. I would assume that they control the ball. Maybe Carlos Hyde. The Browns defense is going to be popular, as it should be. I don't expect, craziness, but the Browns are a hard team to peg because they are the Browns, but they have looked pretty good. If they are much better, they should win this game. They really should. But yeah, I'm keeping it pretty conservative. Browns defense. leaning on Carlos Hyde. I'm hoping that he is all right. And then, you know, a Nunwa we'll get to on the other side. I think he's going to be popular for good reason.
Andrew, usually, and you know, to their credit, DraftKings showdown pricing has actually been pretty sharp, right? Like you're not usually getting guys that are just way off the like way underpriced, sometimes overpriced, like backup quarterbacks, you know, Josh McCown being more expensive than Terrell Pryor. But Terrell Pryor and Rashard Higgins both seem to be really cheap here. Even like David Njoku is cheap. It does seem like there are some pretty sizable discounts from both sides.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, pricing kind of doesn't matter on a showdown because you're just trying to, you know, you're more trying to fit a script than anything else. Like it's not like you're playing showdown cash is more what I'm getting at. Unless you're a real psycho. So yeah, those guys are underpriced.
The showdown cash, they got head-to-heads and stuff. I'm sure they must, right?
Oh yeah.
They must.
You want to pay some rate, you're welcome to.
That's next level though. Don't do that.
That's absurd. Sorry,
yeah, it's no, I mean, I don't have a ton to say about the showdown. I think you're trying to write a script. You can kind of say, you can see it playing out a bunch of different ways. There are a lot of really cheap players, and you know, you can kind of play whoever you want. I personally would avoid paying sort of the whole salary cap just because, you know, you're trying to, if you hit the top lineup, it's really like it's a lotto where you not only want to have the best lineup, but you also want to have it be somewhat unique. You'd prefer to chop first place with 20 people than with 200 people. That's a huge difference. So I kind of am just ignoring price and trying to not spend the whole cap. And I have a few ideas on how the game's going to go, but you know, I think you just kind of roll with that and see what happens.
All right. Yeah, it makes sense. You know, Ben, on the other side, though, it is kind of interesting. Like, Quincy Enunwa has the third highest market share of targets in the league right now. Now, it's a little misleading because Darnold hasn't had to throw a lot, but still, like, you're talking about a guy in Enunwa who's still seen, you know, over his first two games, I think 21, double-digit targets in each. He's clearly become Darnold's favorite target. It hasn't been Robbie Anderson, who, you know, still has the ceiling, probably the highest ceiling of anyone on this team. But then you have Terrell Pryor last week, who was second in targets with 8, played almost 70% of snaps. It's kind of an interesting showdown game between two bad teams.
It is, yeah. And Enunwa was a guy that we had talked about, and we did. That was one guy I've been on, and it's worked. You know, it fits what Darnold wants to do. I think it fits what the Jets want Darnold to do. Robbie Anderson's great, but he's so reliant on the deep ball. He's a burner. It's tough to get the time. It's tough to take those shots with the rookie quarterback. The thing that I think the biggest question mark is Jermaine Kearse. He came back last week, didn't really make an impact. I expect him to get more involved. I don't know if it comes at the expense of Enunwa. Obviously, I don't think it's going to totally take him out, but those targets are going to come from somewhere. He should be more involved as the Jets get going. But yeah, clearly Darnold does like Enunwa, and the routes that he's running are just the best ones for the team in general.
Yep, making it easy on a rookie quarterback. I feel like you wouldn't normally say this with a Jets-Cleveland game, but there are a lot of different ways to go. I mean, could be Hyde, and Njoku's cheap. Rashard Higgins is really cheap. What's he at? Like,
yeah, he's really cheap.
Yeah, he's 3,200, and it's not like he wasn't involved last week, you know, with Josh Gordon gone. So even somebody like Callaway could make a splash. Andrew, there are a lot of honestly, we've seen a good amount of showdown slates. We've now talked about this is the third. This one, believe it or not, feels like it has the most realistic ways of going 1,000 different directions than the other ones, but maybe it's just me.
No, I'm with you. I'm more confused by this. We've had, I mean, it's not even 3. This is the third Thursday, but then you get Sunday night and Monday night. So like, there's been
on 3 fellas. That's the third we've talked about.
Yep. third segment where we break down a random trash Thursday night game. This might be the worst of all. This is probably going to be Ben's favorite game of the entire year. He's got his Jets, Jets and his Browns, his two favorite teams. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I got some lineups. I'm scratching some lotto tickets, but I don't have a great feel for how this is going to work. These teams are not that good. I mean, the Browns defense is fine. Like that's the most exciting thing I think I've got to say. They're pretty good.
What fun, exciting, unique way do the Browns find to lose tonight's game, Ben? Or do they win?
I mean,
do they finally unlock that cooler of beer?
It's funny. I've been rooting for the Browns to win a game, and now they're probably going to win, and I would really prefer them to lose. I'm just so against Hugh Jackson in all ways. I'm just bitter for some of the games they've blown. This would be a bad one because who knows how good the Browns really are. I think they're, like most people, they're going to win a handful of games this year. They're not going 0-16. This is one you got to get, though. At home, the Jets, there's no reason if this defense is as good as they say it is, and it looks pretty good. You just have to cause Darnold some serious problems. Don't turn the ball over and just grind out an ugly win, but a win nonetheless.
Andrew's right, though. They can't go 0-16.
Yeah. Laffy, we have a bet. We have a little side bet going on. I have under 6.5 wins. They could, and this came about because you mentioned, you sort of snap take something about them. You could see them going 500. We could both be right. They could go 6-6-4. You know,
they could.
It's in the cards.
Rack up those ties.
Yeah.
There's never been more than 2 ties in an NFL season since they implemented sudden death in 1974. We have 2 ties through 2 weeks.
Yeah, the 10-minute overtimes. That's making a huge difference. Mm-hmm. Another stupid idea from the NFL.
Man. All right. There you have it. Your showdowns. Look, we're all throwing some lineups in there and just praying to the football gods that something goes right. But
real quick, just if you're playing on FanDuel and you don't know this, Zane Gonzalez is in that player pool. Do not pick him. He is not on the team anymore.
Even if Zane Gonzalez was on the team,
that's true.
Still don't pick him.
Fair point. He might be better suited this week than last week for them. Even though he's
was
not
it?
there.
Him and Danny. What was his name?
Carlson, the Vikings guy. He was apparently worse. Apparently, what he did was more egregious than what
it was. I saw every missed kick from both of them, and they were equally awful. But if you're Carlson, you have to make whatever. Doesn't even matter. Let's move on. We got a lot to talk about here. Andrew, the big story coming into week 3 is Patrick Mahomes. To Mahomes or not to Mahomes?
Mm-hmm. And
you're talking about a guy that is averaging a touchdown pass per every 4.5 attempts. Think about that. That's outrageous, right? He has 45 attempts and 10 touchdown passes to 0 interceptions on the season. Both games have come on the road. Now you've got a home matchup with the San Francisco 49ers. There is a 55.5 total on this game, and Mahomes is almost certainly going to be the most popular play in week 3.
That's true. I think it got up to 56 actually.
Did it really?
Yeah, I'm okay with it. I think you play Mahomes in cash. I have not built a ton yet, but he's standing out as a really good projection play. Quarterbacks are very touchdown dependent. He's gotten a lot of touchdowns. 56 over under is going to project for a lot of touchdowns. San Francisco's defense is not particularly good. I'm still not buying long term necessarily. I think this is a little Deshaun Watson last year, but against the trash defense at home, I see no reason to not. I don't think this is the week to jump off.
Okay. Ben, what about you? To Mahomes or not to Mahomes? You've been fading chalk all season long. Well, for 2 straight weeks, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In any
not been
case,
great so far.
yeah, right. Fading chalk thus far has not been great, but in any case, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it does work, you're taking out a significant portion of the field. I think just in cash, Mahomes is a sure thing. Can we all agree on that? It just makes too much sense, or am I on an island there?
You're certainly not on an island. I'm leaning that way. I don't want to say
I meant on an island with you guys, not everyone. I'm talking.
He projects as the best quarterback value even at $7,000, and he has not thus far done that. The first 2 weeks he was seemed like a fine value. It wasn't a crazy play, but this week he's like a really solid value in my projections, and he has not been yet.
Okay, well, you heard that, Ben. What about you? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No. It's interesting because last week Mahomes was not. You replaced my quarterbacks with Mahomes. My teams are in the same dumpster that they were in. There was a ton of scoring with the quarterbacks. Yes, he was incredible. But that is not what did it. I'm kind of like in the same boat as Andrew. I think he's fine. If he's 25, 30%, there's 100% chance that I'm coming in under. I'm just not getting overweight in that situation. There's too many other quarterbacks. The pricing is somewhat flattened. I think there's just too many pivots, but I'm not looking to full fade him either. I think that's unnecessary, just given that he does have a ceiling. He's rolling, and we've seen him even though he's going to regress, I don't think any rational person thinks that he's just going to never throw an interception. He's going to throw 80 touchdowns this year.
Right.
That doesn't mean it comes in week 3. It doesn't mean, he has to immediately regress. So no problem if you go there, but I also think there are plenty of other options on the slate if you do want to get away from that and hope that he just has a fine game.
Right. That's kind of the thing. Like, he will regress.
Of course.
You're not going to finish the year with 50 touchdowns and no picks.
Most likely not. Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's Pat Mahomes.
If he does, I'm going to
That would be regression the way he's going. Just 50 touchdowns at this point.
But
it's true.
Every good game makes me want to fade him more. Yeah, because in my head, it's, he can't do that again, right? He can't do it again.
That's the Alvin Kamara.
Right.
But
yeah.
I will say the math is backing him up, and the math has not, like a lot of the time with the Alvin Kamara, he was not, like the price caught up too fast. Like it just didn't quite work out. I'm not sure that Pat Mahomes is like a negative expected value play this week, whereas last week I thought he was.
The volume has been low though.
Yep, because they've scored 1 million points really fast. They could kill. I mean, there's a great script where they just kill San Francisco and Kareem Hunt gets 25 carries. Like that's out there. I will make some lineups like hoping for that, but I don't know. I don't think he's 25, 30% owned. I think he's going to be the highest owned quarterback, but that's still probably only 15% or something like that.
And if he's 15% for me, I probably come in very close to that. And I don't let him end my slate. And I also, if he goes ballistic, either way, I'm kind of fine. I'm not going to let him define my slate.
I'm with you there. And, let's look at this take a 30,000 foot view, fellas. Right now, the Chiefs are kind of like the best fantasy team, the best team for fantasy. Like no question. You're talking about a team that has, look at Football Outsiders, DVOA. They don't factor matchup opponent strength in yet for a couple more weeks. But right now, Kansas City with the number 1 offense and the number 32 defense, according to DVOA.
Yeah.
And now if you look through 2 weeks, let's take a look. I tweeted this earlier at the notable fantasy performances against the Chiefs through 2 weeks. All right. Ben Roethlisberger, 42 fantasy points. Juju Smith-Schuster, 34. Phillip Rivers, 33. Melvin Gordon, 31. Keenan Allen and Jesse James, 28. Austin Eckler, 24. James Conner, 20. Antonio Brown, 16. Mike Williams, 13. I mean, Antonio Brown came in under what we were expecting for sure. But Roethlisberger, Juju, Rivers, Melvin Gordon, Allen, clearly Jesse James, Eckler, Connor coming in at 20, fine. Even Mike Williams. Like, that's 9 players in 2 games that have put up either good to monster fantasy totals, 400 plus passing yards for both quarterbacks that have faced him, huge performances from all pass catching players, like including Austin Eckler and Jesse James. But now the Chiefs travel home, Andrew. They are better at home. Eric Berry's still not practicing, though. Like, what I want to know, I'm less concerned about what to do on the Kansas City side. I want to know, what are we doing on the San Francisco side?
Yeah, and Antonio Brown was open deep 3 times in that game where Ben just missed him. So, like, I mean, he had the monster game too. Like, just everyone's lighting them up. That's not anything to do with the Chiefs that Tony screwed up. It has to do with Ben. Yeah, I mean, I love San Francisco in this game. I think this game is just that's part of where I'm scared to fade Mahomes entirely, because, like, I think you want to be playing this game. Kansas City is a bad defense. I like Marquise Goodwin a lot. I think his price is high enough that he's not going to project super well. I don't know that he'll get to become overwhelming chalk, but the way he plays versus the way Kansas City plays, Kansas City does a lot of cover one man, like single high safety, man-to-man corners, and Marquise Goodwin is Tyreek Hill level fast, and he's going to have single coverage running down the field and just have one man to beat. And I think that he could catch, 1 or 2 mega bombs, and that's all you need out of him. So really like that. Yeah, I just think I think Kittle will probably come down in popularity after burning people last week. I think he'll still be popular, but I don't think it'll be like last week. I think he makes for a fine play. Jimmy G has not played particularly well on the season so far, like in a real life perspective, but man, the Chiefs seem to be the medicine right now. So Ben didn't play well last week. He put up 42 freaking fantasy points. He was bad.
Yeah. And I mean, you do wonder, Ben, even though the Chiefs are this bad, is there going to be a game where teams just like will Garoppolo be the guy that disappoints? And anything's possible, right? Like, it's definitely possible that Garoppolo, he was very shaky in the pocket. His knees were buckling when there was no one around him. But I still can't get away from the fact that this Kansas City team, they coughed up, a monster game to a blocking tight end in Jesse James, and that was with Vance McDonald back in the lineup. Like, George, how do I not play George Kittle, right? How do I not consider?
I said that last week.
Yeah, I didn't. No, actually, that's not true. It is and it isn't. With Kittle last week,
we knew it was
we said we didn't want to play him, but it was just so hard to get away from him. I think in this case, I actually want to play George Kittle.
Yeah, Pettis was the guy I was not completely off, but I didn't like him, and he did nothing. I'm with you. I think, first off, this game is going to be really popular to stack. A lot of people see the total. I see it. No problem with it. I don't know. I'm always kind of skeptical of these things. I think a lot could happen. The Chiefs coming home, I think there's a reasonable chance the defense regresses in the other way and plays a pretty good game.
That's my concern. At home, at Arrowhead.
Absolutely. I definitely, Jimmy G, maybe he has the game and this continues, but at the same time, he has not looked good. And Andrew's right. The Chiefs seem to be the medicine, but maybe the struggles are real there. And this is a sloppy, ugly game where the Chiefs D gets involved, Kareem Hunt gets involved. That's a script I certainly will be playing on certain teams. I'm with you on Goodwin. I think the important thing to point out with a guy like that, and the price almost doesn't matter, because he either gets there in an extreme way or he crashes so badly that it doesn't really matter what you paid. He's just that kind of guy. So
it's 4 points or 22.
Exactly. So it's like, I almost would rather have him be expensive to the point where there's no ownership, because I know that his ceiling can get me there regardless.
This game is going to decide a lot. This game will decide a lot, Andrew, because either you're playing it and it does exactly what we're anticipating, or that concern that Ben has, and the concern that's been creeping into my head that I'm trying to ignore but can't, that the Chiefs, no matter how bad they've been, will show up at home just enough to kind of hamstring an already struggling Garoppolo. So I don't think it's as much of a sure thing as everyone else does. But then I keep coming back to the idea that, well, if Kansas City throws up another 40 points, then Garoppolo is still at least going to have all of the opportunity in the world on the opposite end, and he's going to have to throw. So I'm more worried about efficiency and being able to produce than I am about volume, and I usually side with volume.
Yeah, exactly. And you're 100% right. I think the real concerning thing with Garoppolo, you said this a couple minutes ago about him getting sort of like weak knees without like sort of seeing ghost defenders. That's potentially a real problem because quarterbacks that are scared and like are looking around, like that really can affect your decision making long term. And supposedly that's not something that people really get cured of. So I'm a little worried about that, but I it's the volume, man. Like we just said, Ben Roethlisberger played like trash last week and put up 42 fantasy points. There's going to be opportunity there. I think there's a chance that they blow them out, but I don't know. This strikes me as like pretty good chalk. If it's like, if maybe 15% of lineups in tournaments are stacks of this game, I do think there's like a 20+% chance that this is the best fantasy point game. It's not a favorite. I'll take the field, but I think it's probably good expected value to be playing this game. Yeah,
I think so too. It is a bit scary just because Ben, I think all it comes for me, it's like, and we'll move on, but this game will be the deciding game, whether it's amazing or whether it's terrible. It's going to decide things one way or another based solely on the fact that everyone will be on it in some form or fashion, particularly on the side of Kansas City too.
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to the Kansas City Steelers game last week. I mean,
but everyone's cheaper.
That's true. It makes it more stackable, which is, to me, adds to the appeal of kind of trying to swerve a little bit. But even in the last game, and I mean, obviously we know him, but Pontus, one of the sharpest guys here, he crushed the Wildcat because he stacked that game correctly in the sense he avoided a B. And that was the unique. You can get unique within a stack. So it doesn't just have to be, I love this game. And that's what I'm kind of saying. Like, I'm not saying, I'm fading this game because everyone's going to do it. I might stack this game in a creative way, so maybe it gets there, but I'm still not with the herd. I can separate elsewhere.
Yeah, and that's another thing too. It's like Antonio Brown on a week-to-week basis will always be the guy with the highest probability of crushing for the Steelers, but it doesn't mean he's always going to be the guy that crushes for the Steelers because you have Juju and you have Connor and you have Ben who's willing to throw to anyone who's open. And that's what we saw. So, yeah, it's not always going to work. And in the case of Antonio Brown last week, it didn't. All right, let's move forward here. If you guys have any questions in chat, happy to answer them. Michael Wilma says, "Smash KC, fade San Francisco." That's my problem. Like if I'm loading up on Kansas City, I just don't know how I don't play any San Francisco. Like I
would run it back with somebody. If you really like, I'm going to tell you this. If the Chiefs score 40 points in that game, I don't really care. I want Niners on the team regardless.
Because if the Chiefs score 40 points, Jimmy is throwing 40 times.
Yeah.
Right.
And somebody has to get there.
And even if you don't want to play Jimmy, he's still throwing 40 right. Quarterbacks, Andrew, can have a underwhelming game and one of their pass catchers can still smash. Like, that's very possible.
Yeah, that's what I mean. If he's throwing 40 times, like, there's targets out there. Somebody's going to catch 6 or 7 of them,
And if they're cheap targets, which these guys are, like, it doesn't take that much. Kittle can have a pretty bad game and still get there off 9-10 targets.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. All right. I want to talk a little bit about what we've seen through 2 weeks from in terms of volume for some of these running backs. Ben, we'll go to you first. When you look at a few of these guys, they have been fantasy gold mines, and not because they've been super effective or even because some of them are getting into the end zone. Some of them aren't. But in the case of a Christian McCaffrey, he's seen 18 carries, which, not a lot, but then 24 targets. He's one of only 4 running backs to lead his team in market share this year. 24 targets, way more than anyone else. 234 scrimmage yards. I mean, we're now seeing a player in Christian McCaffrey who has developed into the guy that Cam Newton is relying upon heavily. And there was all the talk and concern last year, like, yeah, Cam Newton can't throw short. He sucks when it comes to dump offs and this and that. It hasn't mattered. Christian McCaffrey, anytime this team is playing from behind, it seems like he's going to get more work than he'll know what to do with.
Yep, he's been awesome. I've been super heavy on him the first 2 weeks. I loved him against Atlanta. He was great. He just couldn't find the end zone. That He'll find the end zone. The nice thing about him too is his targets they're such easy targets. They're almost always converted into catches. So, if he has 12 targets, he's not going to have 4 receptions. That's just never going to happen. I expect more of the same. Olsen is hurt. Funchess is their best receiver, and that's enough said. They have really no one to throw to. It's going to be McCaffrey. He's almost game script proof. That is kind of, Andrew talks about this on our show a lot. That's kind of their running game. It's an extension of the run, those little passes. Sure. I expect more of the same from him.
Andrew, another one of these guys, Melvin Gordon, 44 carries and targets combined this year. And, last week was a game against Buffalo where he wasn't even that necessary, and they still scored 3 touchdowns. He's got the Rams this week, tough matchup, Battle of LA. Do you see any value in a Melvin Gordon in a tough matchup because they're going to have to move the ball somehow? What do you make of Gordon here? I'm very curious because my guess is he goes vastly overlooked, but you think that maybe him and Eckler get a lot of – the Chargers don't have a tight end that they can exploit like Derek Carr did against this team, and their receivers could have a tough time unless, of course, Keenan Allen gets it done. What are your thoughts on this side? Melvin Gordon and the Chargers offense in this matchup in general.
Yeah, I think I like Gordon quite a bit, and
Me too.
Part of why I like him is I think people understand that he's going to have a tough time running the ball, and I think that will bring his ownership down. And that's not what we're looking for. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, a lot of it is because the Chargers offensive line is not particularly good, but he's never been like the most efficient runner in the world, but he's
never
racking up targets, and he's scoring touchdowns, which that should regress. But I think I do like Gordon in this matchup. I think people are rightfully super scared of the Rams defense, but if you're going to beat them, it's with short throws and it's kind of in the middle of the field. Their linebackers aren't that good. You can attack them outside. You can't attack them up the middle. I mean, you can't attack them at the line of scrimmage up the middle, but where, the second level up the middle is kind of where you get at them. So I think that I'm with you. I think that Gordon and Eckler are going to be the guys that Phil has to go to a lot, and I'm not sure that they're going to be super popular because people are rightfully scared of the Rams.
Yeah, that's really where I'm at too. Ben, what about you on this one? Because once again, not an easy matchup, but Phillip Rivers is a gunslinger. Even if he's not throwing 50 yards downfield, like they're still going to, I believe at least, that the Chargers to some extent will still find ways to move the ball. Melvin Gordon has been a volume monster through 2 weeks. Do we see that bolster his numbers this week?
It's interesting. I mean, the Rams are good. How good they are, they played Oakland, they played the Cardinals. Yeah. It's not exactly juggernauts. The Chargers will move the ball. I'm not worried about that. I do think it's a pretty tough spot for Gordon, though. The touchdowns are kind of what the red flag is. That's going to regress. The targets are going to be there. He will be involved, but it's tricky. The other thing, and David Johnson is right there, and I know he's dead and buried, but I will have some.
Nope, he's not. He's so live.
7,200. If they're both going to be low, because I agree that people will be scared off Melvin Gordon, and that should make the ownership somewhat juicy. If the David Johnson ownership is juicy, I would rather allocate some shares there. And, I don't play like 1 or 2 teams, but I don't play like 100 lineups either. So I do have to be somewhat careful with the exposures. And if it comes down to those 2 for me, it would be David Johnson.
You're not going to give up.
Not yet. I'm getting closer to giving up, but I don't know. I'm willing to hold on probably too long. I'm a little stubborn. I just think that obviously they're going to realize that they have to get him the ball, and they just will they're not that dumb. Just get him the ball. It's not that hard.
Are they that dumb though? I mean, Sam Bradford's still starting. He's terrible.
He's 4,500.
You will see it.
Well, no, that's not happening.
He's $4,500. Oh God, I'm gonna play some, and I'm so.
I don't want negative fantasy points. I don't care what his price is. Like, dude, Sam, there's no reason he should be starting. I like
the chosen one. It's his time, Rosen, man.
It is his time, man. He's the most NFL ready quarterback out of the rookies anyway. Like, maybe Darnold, but Like, you are talking about a team that didn't get past the 50-yard line last week until, what was it, like the fourth quarter or something? They're embarrassingly bad on offense. Embarrassingly bad. And even if you get David Johnson the ball, I simply don't know how effective or how he can be even marginally effective with Sam Bradford posing zero threat with the ball in his hand. I think they need to make drastic changes immediately, because soon enough, this team is just going to throw their hands up and they're all going to have mid-game retirements like we saw in Buffalo last week.
I mean, I don't disagree with anything you just said. I will say this, though, just in the NFL, these teams teams look sometimes unbeatable. Some teams look like they're never going to win, and sometimes we see that. But like Cardinals at home, I'll put it like this: I expect the Cardinals to beat the Bears at home this week. I don't know if that's a hot take, but
that's a hot take. They're going to get smoked.
Yeah, I
Mitchell
expect
Trubisky is really bad too.
Yeah. But
that Bears defense is for. I believe. I honestly, after week 1, I didn't know. I buy into this Bears defense. That's just me, but I buy into them.
They're quality, but I still think that these teams, unless you're really, really good or you're the Bills level bad, to me it's situational. It's, are you home? These teams can beat each other, and everyone's got the Cardinals dead and buried. Against a team like the Bears, I expect them to be effective, and I'm virtually certain that if they are effective, it will be because of David Johnson. They have no one else.
Well, you could certainly be right. And if there aren't, like you said, if they're not dead and buried, there's only one reason they won't be. It's David Johnson, because Larry Fitzgerald at this age in the slot, he can't be a guy that breaks games open for you anymore. He just can't.
No.
You know?
I think the thing with the Cardinals, I hear what Ben is saying, and I think I lean towards that direction. I am going to be buying some Cardinals this season because I think that it's a little skewed how bad they've been. They faced 2 ferocious pass rushes. So that's a hard phrase to say. Ferocious pass rushes so far. But that's not getting any better this week. Like, the Bears are a tough defense too. So like, I'm going to be on the Cardinals, I think, more long-term. I don't think Bradford's this bad. Fitzgerald and David Johnson are probably still quality players. Their offensive line's really bad. I'm just not sure this is the week that they break out of the slump.
Yeah, not sure Khalil Mack is the guy that is going to help Arizona break out of this slump. But
no, this is an idea. When we talk, the Seahawks are another team that I'm kind of lumping in there, where they've just had a tough little start. Now they're going home, and I expect them to play a whole lot better too. I think there's a couple teams like that where the narrative of what they are is not going to be what we've seen after 2 weeks.
Yep, and that could be the case. No, well, actually, we see things, because I think the Seahawks are going to be. I don't think the Seahawks are going to be very good this year. I
don't
think the Seahawks are pretty bad.
I mean.
Yeah, maybe not this, but again, that's also like after last week, that's a lot of that is saying, well, that you probably think the Bears are worse than they've looked. And I don't think Mitchell Trubisky's even looked that good. I think the defense has just looked really good.
The Bears are really good everywhere except at quarterback. And that's right. That's trouble.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's no doubt about it. But against this Arizona offense, they might not need a quarterback.
Very possible. That's certainly an outcome that the Bears can just rely. I mean, the Bears are not someone I'm looking to target. I'm just saying I think there's reasonable outs for the Cardinals at home in a game like this.
Fair enough. Over under on this game is
7.
The lowest on the slate, a sexy 38-point over under. So
steaming.
Yeah, you have that working for you. Anyway, looking a little further down the list though, Chris Thompson, Andrew, he not only leads Washington in targets as a running back, but he has 21. The next closest pass catcher has 13. He has been the focal point of this offense through the first 2 games, which is pretty incredible when you consider that one game they were ahead by 1 million points, and then the next game they were playing from behind all game. So, game script be damned. It hasn't mattered for Chris Thompson, and he's just been wildly impressive through the first 2 weeks. Now they have a home matchup against Green Bay. Where do you stand on someone like him? I
do like Chris Thompson. I think the price has gotten there where it's a little bit tougher. I played a ton of Chris Thompson. Sorry, I played a ton of him last week, and it was really frustrating because I paired him with Alex Smith everywhere. I had a lot of Chris Thompson, Jordan Reed, Alex Smith stacks.
Me too. Me too.
Didn't go well.
Projections liked Alex Smith quite a bit.
Yeah, no, he was I played Alex Smith in cash.
So did I.
Tough week. But I don't know. I think the price is a little bit much. I do think Green Bay is not like the toughest defense in the world. They don't really have a very good front seven. I think you can get after him. I think you can get after them, and I think Chris Thompson's a fine play, but I'm not so in love with the price is just a little bit. If he was 5,500, I think I'd be a little more into it. But he's a fine play, just not an amazing one to me this week.
Yeah, same with me. I have no problem with him, but I don't know if I love him. Saquon Barkley too, Ben. He has 29 of 35 possible carries for this Giants team. He has a 28% market share of targets, which is, he's just getting an incredible amount of work. But meanwhile, it's become blatantly obvious that no matter how much they want to use this guy, the Giants made a mistake drafting him where they did. Like, say what you want. You're drafting a guy at running back, and your quarterback literally has no arms or legs left anymore. So despite how much talent he might have, he's made one dynamic play in 2 games. And outside of that, it's been dink and dunk, grind out a few yards at a time, and not really maximize his potential. But they are using him as much as humanly possible. And, the Giants are one of only 6 teams with 2 guys with market shares above 25%. So Saquon Barkley is, at least as we know, going to get a ton of work every week, regardless of what's going on. And they're 6-point road dogs this week.
Yeah, he was one not that anyone cares. I faded him on Monday Night Stuff, and it's apparent now that
targets for 80 yards.
Yeah.
Not very efficient.
It's just they have to. It's all about timing. Their offensive line cannot give Eli enough time to get plays to Beckham.
Yeah. You think they regret paying Nate Soldier $400 million?
It's like, it's just a mess. And yes, Barkley's going to be very good, it looks like. But you know what? It starts with this was a quarterback heavy draft. They needed to grab one of those guys. I think so. There's no doubt about it.
And he's got to be like a top 5 running back contract too, because he was the 2nd pick. Like, that's what, $7 million a year or something like that.
So it was 7.8 or something. They were saying that you paid him all that money that could have gone to So yes, absolutely. You're spot on.
Yeah. And I would love to say, not that I'm not a Barkley fan, that regression is coming. Awesome. I just don't know what they're really going to do, because I don't see this change. They're a team where I think what we're seeing is what we're going to get. I don't think they're going to get better. I think they're going to have to rely on him. And the targets are there out of necessity. That's not unlike Christian McCaffrey, where that's a focal point of the Panthers offense. That's what they want to do. I think this is more that there are no options to go downfield. Here and there, they're going to try to get Beckham the ball, of course. Ingram's good, Shepard's whatever, but it's hard to imagine him not being involved regardless of the situation.
Yeah, pretty much. Really Andrew, any takes on Barkley? 6-point dogs, set primed to go 0-3 against this Houston team.
I don't know. Barkley's fine. He gets a lot of work. I don't. It's hard with someone like him because I don't think in general the efficiency is going to be there, but he's also so obviously monstrously athletic that he can just make a play happen by himself. But I don't think he's going to get there without the 65-yard play that he just makes happen. It's a little tough.
He feels almost like a fringe cash for me. The volume will put him up there, but I don't know how high the ceiling is unless they find ways to move the ball. And Clowney's playing. This is a tough spot for that team.
No, I like the Texans a lot, actually. I like the Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins. I think those are nice plays this week. Yeah,
they are. I just wanted to bring up some running backs that might not be at the top of your matchup list. In terms of who has the best matchup this week, none of those guys are staring down the barrel of a perfect matchup. It's more so, are these guys simply getting enough volume to pay it off? And, in most of their cases, they are. Their volume is is pretty outrageous. And I think, in terms of Barkley, that's the case too. Andrew, you look at some of these teams that have been very surprising, whether it be surprisingly good or surprisingly pathetic. Through 2 weeks, again, Pro Football Focus, you're not looking at opponent's strength yet, but through 2 weeks, the Dolphins defense ranks number 1 in pass defense DVOA and number 5 in run defense DVOA. Now, again, you're not exactly talking about a team that squared off against 2 juggernauts. They faced the Jets and Tennessee. But do you think this Miami defense is for real?
No, I really don't. I think, I think they're gonna regress pretty hard. Cameron Wake's their best player, right? Maybe Xavier Howard has potential to be good, but he's a cornerback. Like, they don't really have a ton of talent. Maybe, they just have a lot of sort of no names, and maybe some of those guys are better than we think, but we just don't really have a lot of info on them yet. So I would be betting that they will not continue this elevated level of play.
Ben, what about you when it comes not to Miami, but to the Jets, who we're about to see them tonight? We still have a little bit of time to adjust lineups here. They're second in pass defense and 22nd in run defense. Does that influence your decision at all?
No, not really, to be honest. I think their defense is okay. It's a solid bunch. We saw against the Lions. We knew that wasn't they looked unbelievable, and they were all over Stafford. I think they have some quality players. I feel better about them than I do the Dolphins, to be honest. But at the same time, again, and maybe this is a bad mantra, but in the NFL, unless you have an elite unit or you're so bad that it's like the Bills' offensive line style, I think it's kind of a mix and match. It's determined by matchups, game scripts, things like Miami's defense. I think they're going to regress. They're home against Oakland. This doesn't seem like a spot, they can have a lot of success again this week. And if they were playing a different type of team, you would say, well, this is where they'll really be tested.
Yeah. And I don't think they're going to be tested much at all. Looking at the bad teams, though, Ben, the Saints. This is a huge puzzle that needs to be solved here, because last year we came into the season saying the Saints are going to be terrible. Their pass defense is going to be awful. First couple games they were awful, and then it's like, oh my God, Marcus Lattimore is legit. Like, Crowley's good. Now they have Patrick Robinson. This team, you would think, should not be this bad, but we have seen them now through 2 weeks. They are 31st in pass defense DVOA, number 1 in run defense DVOA. And that's not just yards allowed and stuff, because they've given up so much to the air, but 31st in pass defense. What's happening with the Saints, who this week have to go in to Atlanta and face the Falcons at 1:00?
Yeah, huge game. They're really lucky they're not 0-2, dropping both at home.
So lucky. Thank you, Zane Gonzalez.
Yeah, only the Browns can alleviate that. I'm not sure what to make of it. They got off to a really slow start last year. Lattimore is a mystery. He's doesn't look the same, but I don't know why he wouldn't be. This is going to be a big test. The Falcons are no joke, Julio and the boys. I feel pretty comfortable that saying the Saints are going to be there at the end of the year, that they're not just going to crash and burn, but it has been disappointing. Especially, you sleepwalk through week 1. I didn't think that was possible, of course, but you know what? You could justify it. Division game, it happens. I was stunned that they didn't just go out and play angry and steamroll the Browns at home. It just seemed like a perfect script to say, all right, we let one get away. Let's just get back on track. So we'll see what they're made of. This is a really big game for week 3.
Yeah, not only did they not go out and steamroll them, but they were entirely anemic. Like, had it not been for Michael Thomas, who literally catches everything thrown his way, they're losing that game. And I don't know what to make of him, Andrew. I'm trying. I've even gone back and watched these games. Like, there are problems are evident, right? But right. Breeze has an 80+% completion rating in each of his first 2 games. It's not like Breeze is losing games for them, but 21 points against New Orleans or against Cleveland, scratching out a win, is not Saints football at home.
Yeah, I think it's as simple as that they don't have much of a pass rush. They can't get after the passer, and they really could last year, and that was surprising. Doesn't matter who your cornerbacks are if you can't rush the passer. They are at a massive disadvantage. Like AJ Bouye and Jalen Ramsey didn't become the best cornerback duo in the league until they got Calais Campbell and Yannick Ngakoue. Like they just have this. The Jacksonville defensive line got really amped up, and that's when they started to look amazing. The Seahawks, even when they were awesome, they had super awesome pass rushers. Like a cornerback can't hold coverage by himself for 7-8 seconds, and the Saints haven't been able to get after the passer. If passers have time to do what they want to do, then it doesn't really matter who the cornerbacks are. I don't think it's Lattimore and Crawley's fault, is I guess what I'm saying.
I think that's pretty reasonable, and it's a good point. But I guess the question then is, were Lattimore and Crowley last year overrated, or is it just that it doesn't matter it doesn't matter how good they are, if the pass rush can't get it done, they won't produce? Because right now, looking at this team, I have no problem picking on them week after week, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I don't know. I think it really comes down to whether or not they can get some pass rush. I think Lattimore is really good. He was really good last year. He had a couple tough games. He wasn't like ironclad, like he did get lit up a few times. Mm-hmm. I don't know, but I'm more with you. I'm more on the latter side where it's more about the pass rush, and it doesn't like at a certain point. Like it's nice to have good cornerbacks, but they aren't as important to pass defense as the defensive line is, in my opinion.
All right. Let's go ahead and just take a quick look at some games here. We have Kansas City and San Francisco. We already discussed that one. Let's stay on topic with the Saints in Atlanta, Ben. Is this a game that you are looking heavily to target? 53.5 over under, the second highest on the slate. Not only that, though, when you look at this game, there is a 3-point spread. So we expect to see a competitive divisional game with a fair share of scoring.
Yeah, I like this one. You said it. Back and forth, close spread, inside, and they're not in the Superdome, but still should be up and down. Alvin Kamara, this is probably a first for me. I really do like the spot. Super expensive, but I think the volume, which is always the concern, even when I was fading him, it wasn't that I didn't think he couldn't break a couple. It's that I'm willing to roll the dice when you get 12 touches. I think we see a script similar to Christian McCaffrey that they're going to pick without I know I'm harping on this on all these shows, but Deion Jones being out for the Falcons, I think is a game changer. That is the guy who would have been tasked with Kamara. They have no answer. Neal in the secondary is also out, which is another big deal. I really like the Saints in this game, and the Falcons at home, it's hard not to like them. Coleman's, he's fine. Freeman to him is no drop off. Julio's Julio. They got other weapons, Ridley, Hooper, Sanu even. It's tough to pick. I picked, I had 4 touchdowns from Matt Ryan last week, just none to Julio, none to Sanu. But it was
he ran 2 of them in.
Yeah, he ran 2 in, one to Hooper, 1 to Ridley. That was a tough stomach, but yeah, this is a game to like on both sides of the ball. I think it could certainly be up and down. Andrew,
what about you?
Yeah, I'm on Kamara this week too. I think he's a little expensive, but yeah, there's just a real shot that he goes crazy. The Falcons, Jaguars, and Seahawks all run the same sort of base defense because they're all from the Seahawks coaching tree, and those defenses do funnel a lot of passes to running backs, and the Falcons were able to get away with that a little more because they had Deion Jones. The Seahawks used to be able to get away with it because of Cam Chancellor. Like, they don't have that personnel now to really bottle that up. So they would say, hey, why don't you throw to your running back over and over again, because we can stop that play. And I don't think the Falcons can do it now. So I think Kamara's as live as he ever is to just get a massive play at some point.
So do I. What about Julio here against this Saints team that has struggled mightily in pass defense?
If they can't rush the passer and Matt Ryan's got and the Falcons have a good offensive line too. If Matt Ryan's got all day to be able to find Julio, yeah, I think we've got a big spot for him.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that he doesn't eat here. Another game, not a lot of super high totals, actually. You have Kansas City, San Francisco, New Orleans, Atlanta, and then the Rams and Chargers we talked about. I don't know how much I love this one though, Andrew. I think like Melvin, I think makes sense. We talked about that, why he could be used as a guy that you pivot off of popular plays with. But outside of the fact that Jared Goff is literally targeting only 3 pass catchers, in Kupp, Woods, and Cooks, tight ends have 0 involvement. And then obviously Gurley, we know where the targets will be concentrated. Are you buying into this being a decent spot, or do you think the Chargers defense keeps this a lower scoring close game?
I don't know. I think everyone's kind of expensive in this game is more the thing. It's true. I mean, the Rams do have a very concentrated offense. That's nice to see. I remember watching the game last week, and they threw to Tyler Higbee at one point in like maybe the third quarter, and it was like the announcer said that is the first tight end target of the entire season.
They had 0 in week 1. It was his touchdown. I think he had like 1 for 1 for a touchdown.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And that was the first tight end toss of the whole year. So I don't know. The Chargers, I mean, having no Joey Bosa is a pretty big deal to them. Gurley is Gurley's fine. Gurley's safe. I don't know that Gurley's going to put up 35 this week, but he's a lot of money. I don't know. I'm not like in love with this game. I think there's some okay play. There's some fine plays, but I don't think the prices are ones that I really want to jump over. And I don't think the ownership is like going to be at a spot where it's like an obvious pivot to me. So I don't know. Not super interested in this game, to be honest.
Yeah, neither am I. Ben, Philly and Indianapolis. Here's one we need to talk about before we get out of here for the day. And of course, Ben and I will be doing the game plan Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time, breaking every game down in depth leading up to lock, an hour before lock. And then are you guys talking football during your day, the A and B from A to B?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Tomorrow, 2:30, we'll be talking NFL and college football. So
all right, there you go. So Philly, Carson Wentz back at the helm. It's first game back, but
yeah, you're excited?
Yeah, oh, dude, after last week, you have no idea. But I mean, I can't help but have some interest in this team just because I don't trust the Colts secondary whatsoever. Now, to be fair, Indianapolis has actually done a solid job, or at least been serviceable, and their pass rush has been surprisingly competent. So they have that. But with Carson Wentz back, it does change this team around. But I don't think Ajayi is going to play either. So very limited in terms of weapons with no Alshon, probably no Ajayi. There's slim pickings in this Philly offense.
Yeah, this is one we briefly touched upon, and I was kind of skeptical. I'm starting to pick up some steam for the Eagles. If Sproles doesn't play, it's going to be hard not to look to Corey Clement. You'd think he carves out not a workhorse role, but enough at that price where it's a pretty good spot. I think you can go across the board, though. You want to look to Aguilar taking those targets, and Ertz is going to get his. I mean, I would expect double-digit targets. Once again, not a great game to stack. I still will hold to that I don't see the production being spread around enough. But I will take individual pieces of these Eagles guys. In a game where the Colts have been better, they killed me last week because I was on the Redskins pretty heavily, but I still think we see the Eagles control this one. Pretty good targets for me.
All right, and then we'll hit these. We're going to do our hot takes, and we'll head out. We'll watch some Thursday night football. Isn't everyone stoked?
Woo.
Andrew, this question may sound strange, but it will make sense. Minnesota.
Yes.
You might ask, well, how much interest do you have? That's what I was going to ask, but they are a 16.5-point favorite. 16.5 points. Does that kind of curtail your appeal because they are such a massive favorite? Like, they're going to score points. And you said you don't believe in the narrative that teams take their feet off the gas, teams that maybe aren't playing these guys down in the second half or late in the second half. Is that a concern to you? I mean, it's a massive favorite. Or is this a spot where you say, I don't care, load up on Minnesota players and make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, they do have an implied total of like 28.5. It's the projected Vegas score for this game is 28.5 to 12.
Dude, that's insane.
It's really nuts.
12 is 4.5 points lowest than the next lowest expected total.
Yeah. And so the Vikings have one of the highest totals on the, like Kansas City's higher, but the Vikings are right up there. And I don't know that people automatically see that because I think what a lot of people do is they just see the 44.5 over under and are like, this is kind of a middling total because it is for the game, but that's all on Minnesota's side of the ball. So I think in tournaments, I'm pretty excited about them. I think, Dalvin Cook at 7-1. There's just a lot of other really good running backs around there that I think will probably garner some ownership. I mean, Kirk Cousins is kind of a crappy real life quarterback, but man, he throws the ball up a lot and he's got a couple of awesome wide receivers. So I think it's a reasonable spot. I think you can go like sort of Vikings onslaught in some tournament lineups, and I will have some of that.
What about you, Ben?
Yeah, it's a weird. I mean, obviously, you see a game like that, your first thought is, Vikings defense, which I, like many people, think is a very, very good play. They're the most expensive, but for good reason. The Bills are another one. I know we've been jumping throughout the show. The Bills, I kind of see them for what they are. They're going to probably be the worst team in the league. I don't think there's much chance that they're not really bad this year. I'll say this. I think if you're going to go with the Vikings, I see merit to really loading up like that. You could be pretty aggressive because there's a chance that this game just gets, 45-3. That is a range of outcomes. And if that happens, Cousins, Diggs, Thielen, you could really Rudolph, mix and match them. I don't mind that. Going the other way, it's kind of just tricky because I don't know who's going to get that production. Someone's playing well, but if Diggs had 2 touchdowns, it wouldn't shock me. If they controlled it on the ground, it wouldn't shock me. If Rudolph caught a couple random, there's so many mouths to feed.
I think that's onslaught or fade because it could be 17-6 too. Like I'm just playing a ton of them or I'm just avoiding it.
I'm leaning that way too, I think.
And there's a good chance that Dalvin Cook could not play.
Is he on the injury? I didn't even notice.
Yeah, he's got a hamstring, right?
He still didn't practice today either. Yeah, like there's a good chance that Lat Murray is the guy here. And
well, then he's like a cash lock at that point. That's going to be
pretty much. Well, he's also, what is he, 5,800. So he's not cheap.
Yeah.
All right, boys, let's close it out. We've just had, what is it? We're doing the coin? No. Opening kickoff has already taken place. Barn burner on tap. Hot takes for week 3. You know what? I'm going to start this one off, boys. I'm going to start this one off. And I'm going to go try and make it as hot as possible. All right, you know what? I'm going to go with the Oakland-Miami game. I'm going to say that Oakland wins this game by 10 points.
Ooh.
Miami's defense, ranked number 1 in pass defense, like number 5 in run D. Oakland's been terrible. I think they finally get it together, if only for a week. And Oakland just wrecks this Miami team. That said, I have no true fantasy interest in either side of this game. Andrew?
I'll go Deshaun Watson has the most points at quarterback.
Okay. All right. What about you, Ben?
I said it earlier. I think the Cardinals win at home and, David Johnson gets back on track.
Well, that would be a hot take, and I will accept. All right, that'll do it for us 3 fellas talking football. We'll be back with you next Thursday. You can catch From A to B tomorrow at 2:30 Eastern. You can catch Ben and myself on the Game Plan Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And the MLB Deeper Dive, of course, for those of you that are still in the grind, 5 p.m. Eastern time. Until then, good luck. Enjoy some awful Thursday night football. Later.